Assalamu alaikum, dear students, and also fans on YouTube channel. Today, our topic is conditional clause type 2. You may also call this type of conditional clause imaginary conditional clause. The second name for it is imaginary conditional clause, or you can say type 2 conditional clause. Before I start explaining type 2 conditional clause, let me ask you some questions. And I want you to pay close attention to my questions and try to give me complete answers. At the beginning of your answer, there should be if. Okay? At the beginning. What would you do if you had a lot of money? Who can answer this question? What would you do if you had a lot of money?
If I had a lot of money, I would go to Mecca.
If I had a lot of money, I would go to Mecca. Correct. Where would you go? Where would you go if you were rich? If you were rich.
If I were rich, I will go to.
I would go
I
to.
would go to Pakistan.
If I were rich, I would go to Pakistan. Pakistanis on YouTube, okay? He would come to Pakistan if he were rich. You could mention like an expensive country if you were rich. I would go to the United States if I were rich. I would go to Switzerland if I were rich. I would go to Mecca, like he said, right? Okay. So what would you buy? What would you buy if you had $1 million? What would you buy if you had $1 million?
If I had $1 million, I would send my father and mother to Mecca.
Yeah, I would send my father and my parents to Mecca. Cool. Let me say this. Learning conditional clauses is very important, as I've already mentioned this several times. And the reason I decided to teach conditional clauses one by one, because I want students to focus on one conditional clause at a time, okay, so that they can learn it properly and correctly. So now, I mean, the problem is that many English learners mix these conditional clauses, like where they need well, they use would, where they need would, they use well. So therefore, I want you to pay close attention to the explanation of type 2 conditional clause. First, I'm going to explain the structure, like how you can make, these kind of complex sentences in which you use a type 2 conditional clause, what the rules are, because structure is also important. If we don't know the structure of a sentence, we cannot make the sentence correctly, right? And then I will talk about the concept, like what the concept is, okay? So first of all, again, I want to mention that we use conditional clauses in complex sentences. And a complex sentence is the combination of two clauses. So whenever we use a conditional clause, there should be a main clause in that sentence too. There should be an independent clause in the sentence too. If it's just a conditional clause, it can't be a complete sentence. Why? Because a conditional clause is a subordinate clause or a dependent clause. It cannot stand alone as a sentence. For example, if somebody says, if he studied hard, it's not a complete sentence. When there is a conditional clause, there is a independent clause too. There is an independent clause too. And together, this is called a complex sentence. So now look, the rules when we use type 2 conditional clause, in if clause, there should be simple past tense. There should be simple past tense. I mean, there could be past continuous tense sometimes too. There could be past perfect tense sometimes too. But most commonly, there is simple past tense. Understood? In our next class, in our independent clause, there should be would plus verb base form. Not will, not shall, not will, not okay, ism, are going to, not any other model like would. I mean, there could be could, okay? So you may use could as well. But if you use could, then it shows possibility in the past, not a condition. Would is used specifically to show a condition, okay? So now if you change the positions of your classes, like you bring the independent class first, the main class first, which starts with the subject, then you do not need a comma, because if the conjunction if goes to the middle of the sentence and it's there to separate your two classes, you don't need this comma. If you bring if class first, conditional class first, you need a comma in the middle of your sentence before you start the main class. But in this case, if you bring the independent class first, then you do not need a comma. Conjunction is there to separate the two classes. Okay, so rules for the structure of conditional class type 2. Next, if you want to change this sentence to negative form, you may bring changes in both classes, in both independent or main class, and also in dependent or conditional class. For example, he would pass the exam if he studied hard. He wouldn't pass the exam if he didn't study hard. You got it? So you can make this class negative, I mean the main class, and you can make the conditional class negative. It's okay. But when you want to change this sentence to interrogative form, to a question form, yes, no question form, or information question form, then you are not going to be bringing any changes in if class. No change in if class. You only bring changes in the main class. For example, he would pass the exam if he studied hard. And now if we want to change it to interrogative form, then we just bring, the auxiliary first. Would he pass the exam? And then continue the sentence and use a question mark at the end, right? So changes should be brought in main class when we want to turn this affirmative sentence into interrogative sentence. In if class, we should not bring any changes. Understood? And now, if you want to make it even WH or information question, you just before would just bring your information question word, okay? For example, why, how, where, when, okay? How would he pass the exam if he studied hard? Okay, in if class, no change. Understood? You got the point? Okay. If you want to change this sentence to negative form, you may bring changes in both classes. Or maybe in one of these two classes, or maybe in both classes. But you want to change it to yes, no question, or information question, or negative interrogative form. For example, if it's negative interrogative, instead of would he pass the exam, you may say wouldn't he pass the exam? Negative interrogative form. That's also possible, right? Or you may say, how would he pass the exam? How wouldn't he pass the exam? Negative interrogative form in information questions. So all changes in this case should be brought in main or independent class, which starts with the subject. I hope it's clear now. Okay. So this was all about the structure. Once again, a quick review. If class, there should be simple past tense. In our main class, there should be would plus verb base form, or sometimes could plus verb base form. So somebody may say if he studied hard, he could pass the exam. So it was possible for him to pass the exam, right? But it doesn't show condition, it shows just the possibility or the ability, okay? But would shows condition. Okay, and if you change the positions, then the comma is not necessary in the middle of your complex sentence. And if you want to change your sentence to negative form, you may bring changes in both classes. But if you want to change it to interrogative form or question form, then you only bring changes in your main class and not in the if class, okay? And now, what the concept is also very important to know. So, when we use type 2 conditional class, we talk about unreal situation. What kind of situation? Unreal condition, unreal situation. Something that can't be true at present time. Keep in mind that we use simple past tense and conditional clause type 2, but we talk about something at present time that is not real, that is not true. Understood? So in this case, in this specific case, we use simple past tense for a present purpose. Don't forget, this is very important. You use simple past tense to talk about an action that started and finished at a specific time in the past. But in this case, you use simple past tense to talk about something that is not true, that cannot be real at present time. Don't forget this, okay? So for example, if he didn't play games, he wouldn't fail the exam. Now, a positive sentence gives a negative meaning, a negative sentence gives a positive meaning. In this case, when we use type 2 conditional clause. Okay, what does that mean? Look, so let's suppose the situation is that this person about whom we're making examples had an exam, he didn't study hard, and he failed the exam. Okay, so now the first sentence says if he studied hard, he would pass the exam. So passing the exam is still dependent on studying hard. Something is conditional on something else. Okay, he should have studied hard so that he would have passed the exam, but it didn't happen. So now at present time that cannot be true because he already failed the exam. This sentence is positive, but the meaning is negative. If he studied hard, he would pass the exam. The sentence is positive. You don't have any negative form, but the meaning is negative. A positive sentence gives a negative meaning. A negative sentence gives a positive meaning. So still, I mean, something is conditional on something else. This is my imagination. I'm saying something and it's imaginary. Now he has already failed the exam. That cannot be true about him. I'm talking about this person and he has already failed the exam. Okay? So now passing the exam is not possible because it's over, it's done, right? So I'm talking about something that cannot be true or real at present time. Okay? But the point is that according to my imagination, if he studied hard, if that happened, if that action happened, so the result would be passing the exam. Okay, so passing the exam is still conditional on studying hard, but something imaginary, not something true, something unreal. At present time, it is not real, it's not true. And again, I told you that now he spent all of his time on playing games. Okay, so now here we have negative form in both clauses, but the meaning is positive. How? If he didn't play games, he wouldn't fail the exam. The forms are negative, but the meaning is positive. It means he did fail the exam, right? And he did play the games. Okay, so the meaning is positive. Okay, the structures are negative, but the meaning is positive. One more thing that I want to mention here, if you want to use a to be verb, okay, according to formal English, we need to use were with all subjects. Okay, for example, we don't say if he was, we don't say if she was, if I was. Okay, here we say if she were rich, she would buy a big house. Look, if you hear a native speaker, an American, saying that if I was, if she was, if he was, it will be informal spoken English. Okay, according to formal academic English, we use the to be verb were with all subjects. If I were, if you were, if she were, if he were. Understood? So whenever we use a to be verb in our conditional clause type 2, in if clause, we use were according to academic and formal English with all subjects. Understood? So now it depends. In spoken English, if you say if she was rich, she would buy a big house, it's okay in spoken English, right? According to my point of view, for us, it's not okay. Why? Because we learn English according to grammar and according to rules and regulations, right? And if, for example, if your purpose is not academic, you spend time in an English environment, you learn English from native speakers, of course, it comes to you naturally. Instead of saying if he were, you say if he was, okay? So why? Because in spoken English is very common. I mean, native speakers use was instead of were. But according to academic and formal English, were with all subjects, okay? So again, if she were rich, she would buy a big house. According to this sentence, is she rich at present time? Is she rich at present time? No, she's not. No, she's not. The sentence is positive, the meaning is negative. If she were rich, she would buy a big house. Okay? Now, if she were rich, we wouldn't be saying if she were rich. We wouldn't be using if. We would be just saying she's rich and she's gonna buy a big house. She is rich and she will buy a big house, right? But the reason we use if, it is not true. At present time, okay, she is not rich. Understood? So this positive sentence again gives a negative meaning. You got the point? Okay. What else? Ask your questions. Let me know if anything is remaining. Okay. So to conclude, conditional clause type 2 is used to talk about unreal situation, to talk about something that cannot be true at present time. A positive sentence gives a negative meaning. A negative sentence gives a positive meaning. Okay? In the structure, in if clause, we use simple past tense. In the next class, we use would plus verb base form. Okay? We can change the positions of our two clauses. But if we bring if clause first in our sentence, in our complex sentence, we need a comma in the middle of our sentence, right? And if we bring the main clause first in the if clause second, then we do not need a comma, okay? And if we need to use a to be verb, according to formal English, word should be used with all subjects, even if the subject is third person singular, he, she, or the name of, a person, right? Jamal, Kamal, right? According to formal academic English. In spoken English, it's okay. You may say if she was, if he was, right? And obviously with, the rest of the subject is if we were, if, I were, if you were, if they were, right? So that's all about type 2 conditional clause. Let's make some examples, okay?
Sir, can we use conjunction sentences before the if plus? Like both Ali and Jamal, if they were.
Yeah, possible, but that is something different. That's a different, grammatical point. We can use compound complex sentences. We can make compound complex sentences in which you may have 3 or more than 3 clauses. Okay? When you combine 2 complex sentences, it becomes compound complex sentence. When you combine 2 compound sentences or 1 compound sentence with 1 complex sentence, it becomes compound complex, okay? Or maybe 1 complex with a simple sentence, or 1 compound sentence with a simple sentence. If you add 1 more clause, it's possible, okay? But there will be compound complex sentence, and inshallah, once you get to that grammar, we will be working on compound complex sentences. Here, I don't want to make the students confused. They just need to focus on conditional clause type 2, okay? Yeah.
Sir, in question
I can give you, I can give you an example of a compound complex sentence, right? He didn't study hard, but if he studied hard, he would definitely pass the exam. He didn't study hard, 1 class, simple sentence. But if he studied hard, he would definitely pass the exam. So now complex sentence. The first sentence before but is a simple sentence, and the other sentence after but is a complex sentence. Together it is a compound complex sentence. I hope you got the point. But inshallah in the future we will have a complete lesson about compound complex sentences. Okay? Yeah, what's your question?
In question form, so when you make a question, we must bring changes in main clause.
Exactly. You do not bring any changes in if clause. She's asking when we change affirmative sentence to interrogative sentence or yes no question, what should we do? Okay? So once again, I'm repeating this. When we do that, We do not bring any changes in if clause. No changes in if clause at all. That's all, okay? We bring changes in main clause or independent clause. So what's your independent clause? That starts with the subject. Here, he would pass the exam, okay? So would he pass the exam if he studied hard? How would he pass the exam if he studied hard? In if clause, you do not bring any changes. Understood? Yeah, in question form, in interrogative form.
When we make it negative, we must.
It's okay. You may bring changes in both clauses when you make your sentence negative. Or there may be negative form in one clause and positive. Well, it depends. You may have a positive form, but the adjective or the verb that you use may be negative. Okay? You got the point? Yes.
Sir, so I have a question. Sir, at first, whenever we want to talk in Dari, in our own language, and we want to say, if it rained, so I'll go to cinema.
If it rained,
If it rained, I'll go to cinema in our daily life.
mhm.
But at the first type of conditional clauses, it was it rains.
If it rains, yeah.
If it rains.
Yeah, yeah.
So, sir, according to our own language, sir, how we can say if it rain agar baran بود باز میرم.
Okay. Let me tell you this. I've said this many times before, and it's a part of the reality, okay, that English has to be learned by English. Why? Because English is not a subordinate of any other language, okay? It's not a subordinate of Arabic or Dari or Pashto, okay? English has its own rules and regulations, but our languages have their own rules and regulations, okay? For example, when we go to conditional clause type 3, we do not have such a thing in our language. We only use just, type 2 conditional clause for both purposes, okay? But in English language, if we talk about present unreal situation, we use type 2 simple present tense with would plus verb base form. When we talk about a past unreal situation, we use type 3. Instead of simple past tense, we use past perfect tense. And instead of would plus verb base form, we use perfective model, would have plus, okay? So now, whatever you say in your language, who knows, that could be a part of the slang, that could be the part of informal spoken language. When it comes to grammar, I'm pretty sure that each language has its own rules and regulations. According to grammar, a lot of things are not correct, but you hear an American saying that he don't know. So now you heard this from your teachers that we use does with he, she, it, right? And we use do with the rest of the subjects. And now you hear an American saying he don't know or she don't know. So what's your decision? Either your teacher is wrong or that American guy is wrong. Obviously you say my teacher is wrong. Why? Because he's not the native speaker of English language, right? I'm gonna be recording a complete video about this. Convincing the students that these are common mistakes. I'm gonna be collecting all of the common mistakes made by native speakers, by Americans, okay? And they're just common. So now you should know that that is slang, that is amyana. That is just, part of the informal slang language, okay? And my teacher taught me academic English, but still, I'm showing you the differences. This is informal, this is slang, this is academic, this is formal. You should know the difference. Use the language according to the environment. If it's academic environment, use academic English. If it's informal environment, use informal English. Understood? So now, if you tell somebody in the world, and now the whole world is, watching this video, students from all over the world, English learners from all over the world, and especially in the future, once we have, hundreds of thousands of subscribers. So keep in mind that if you tell anybody in English that in our language it's okay to say, I eat water, they will be all laughing at you. I'm telling you this. I'm saying this to the world. See, in our language, here in Afghanistan, it's okay. It's of course, in slang, in informal way, it's okay to say, I eat water. But what about saying this in English, right? Yeah, people may think that you're crazy or something is wrong with your mind, right? How do you eat water? But in our language, it's perfectly fine and spoken. Okay, so I'm pretty sure what you say is just informal or slang. Understood? Because, but still, again, I told you that exactly anything that we say in English, that's why word for word interpretation or translation is wrong. It's incorrect. Okay, because English has its own rules and regulations. Your language has its own rules and regulations. When you interpret something or translate something, you read a whole paragraph, a cluster of sentences, a group of sentences. You grasp, you get the main idea, and then you just convey the idea. Okay, you're not changing the words. Okay, the way it is correct in your language. Understood? In your language, subject, the position of subject is in one place, and verb comes in a different place. But in English, it's not like that exactly. Word for word. Interpretation, translation is wrong as well, okay? You get the point? But just think in English. For what purpose we use zero conditional clause? When we talk about something that is always true, but it is conditional on something else. We talk about something that we do in our daily life, zero conditional clause. In something true, in something real, but still something is conditional on something else. Okay? If I study hard, I get high score. Always. Anytime in my lifetime. Whenever I study hard, I get high score. Okay, and if it's type 1, if I study hard, I will get a high score. If I study hard tomorrow or tonight, I will get a high score. You use present tense, but you talk about future, something that is probable, that is still real, that may happen, but there's a probability. And now, when it comes to conditional clause, that was type 1, right? In type 2, you talk about something that can't be true at present time. You talk about something that's not real at present time. Understood? So now it just becomes a kind of desire. You didn't study hard, okay? And you failed the exam, and now you say, if I studied hard, I would get a high score. If I studied hard, I would pass the exam. Now passing the exam is just your desire. Studying hard is just your desire. You wish that you studied hard, but you didn't, right? Okay, so it's something imaginary. At present time, it is not true. It is not real. I hope you got the point. Okay, so let's make some examples quickly for a few minutes. I didn't expect this video to go that longer. I thought we would just cover, type 2 conditional class within like 10-15 minutes, but it's okay. It's okay. It's an actual classroom. And
In the name of Allah, if I had more time, I would get the complete score on final examination.
yeah, if I had more time, I would get the complete, yeah.
If I had $1 million, I would buy a Lamborghini car.
Yeah, if I had $1 million, I would buy a Lamborghini car. If you bought a Lamborghini car, you wouldn't be able to drive it in Afghanistan. Okay. If you were not able to drive it in Afghanistan, so you wouldn't need to keep it, in your house. Okay. If you didn't need to keep that car in your house, you wouldn't have to buy it.
If the Afghan force had power, they would eliminate Taliban.
Mm-hmm.
If I had a lot of money, I would buy a pair of lenses.
Yeah, if I weren't sick, I wouldn't be coughing now. If I were not sick, I wouldn't be coughing now. See, I use the continuous form, and that's possible.
If we wrote an essay, we would get high score.
He would get a higher score. Okay, this much recording is enough. Have a great time, and don't forget to watch the series of conditional clauses in the playlist called Conditional Clauses. Have a great time. Bye-bye.